So, welcome to a very interesting story, a very interesting episode of Light & Co. This one's about the remarkable pearl pendulums. And this is Venus, and she is my own personal pearl pendulum. So, this is a story about how they came to be. So, buckle down, make a cuppa. You will never hear an epic story like this anywhere else. Okay. So, I'm telling the story because the pendulums are what actually underpins everything that I do. And without comprehending how they came to be and the mighty instruments of light that they are, none of what I say or do actually carries the weight that it could. Okay? So welcome to the Light & Co podcast. This is episode 5. I'm Dee Light and I'll be your host for the next, however long this takes. So, I never, ever thought I would be doing this at my age, okay? I didn't set out 40 years ago to say, wow, I'm going to have this suite of pearl pendulums, all bejeweled, amazing instruments, and I'm going to be doing this massive clearing worldwide, and yeah, sure. No, because it doesn't work like that. When we're working with energies like this, you're given a crumb and then the next crumb, because the largesse of what it is that you came here to do would actually blow your mind, so to speak. So your higher self, your wise self, doesn't give you the whole picture, just snippets of it. So I'm telling the story because it's so applicable to the work that I do with people running their own business, because we have no roadmap now. We're actually generating that from the inside out. And the visions that we have are so damn big and so damn wow that there isn't an existing roadmap to bring them about. So I'm going to tell the story so you can learn and experience through the story what it takes, what it can take to bring a huge vision into actualization. And believe me, we're just at the beginning, all right? So, this actually could be part 2. I'm not going to go to part 1, but I'm going to say that part 2 starts in 2008. So 18 years ago. So some of you know that, all of you maybe know that I'm married to a natural perfumer. He's one of Australia's original natural perfumers. Quite an extraordinary man. So when you're married to a natural perfumer, you are privy to a world of genius that few actually get to experience. So back in 2008, well, let me take you back to 1998, 10 years prior to that. Clive, my husband, and myself started Newland Aroma Apothecary in Noosa. Now, we had been doing lots of facilitating and workshops and energetic work, and he'd been working with high-grade essential oils before that. We were living in Noosa at the time, young children, and he said, I'm going to start an apothecary. He said, but not a normal apothecary, an aroma apothecary with high-grade essential oils. So you can come in and buy just a drop of the world's best sandalwood. Okay. Or you can come in and have something made just for you. So we had about, well, we built up to about 150 oils. And these are the oils that get past his finely tuned somatic sort of test bed. It's like if it doesn't get past his nose, it doesn't make the shelf. So the apothecary became like an international mecca for visitors to Noosa to seek us out. You know, our rose serum and our rose cream found their way into Joyce Beauty in Hong Kong. We began quietly to be sought out. And then in 2008, something remarkable happened. Some pink lotus came on the market, a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. And we wanted some of it. In fact, we got some of it. You know, and I'm talking like there was 100 ml released in the world, so we got some of it. And in actual fact, the interesting thing because Clive had been working with the lotuses, they didn't actually speak to him for a couple of years. So when this one started to speak to him, he then created my own signature blend called Venus. Now, at that time, we had pretty schmick packaging within our apothecary, but we didn't have anything that could support something so rare, something so ephemeral, something so precious as this pink lotus. And I remember, I don't think he'll ever get to see this, but I remember our kids used to do nippers, or our son did nippers, and one of the guys in nippers, and if you don't know, understand what, it's junior life-saving, right? So we live near the beach, and he was a marketer. And one day he said to me, you know, if these perfumes are so rare, he said, why do you house them in simple bottles, roll-on bottles like that? He said, they should be in jewels. Haven't you checked out those exotic magazines with all the high-end jewellery, etc., etc.? He said, they should be in jewels. Now, I'm always up for a challenge. So, no finances. How are we going to do that? But we've got to do this because we've got to honour the plant world. So, in 2008, I began a company called Manifesto of Light. And Manifesto of Light, the fundamental vision of Manifesto of Light is to take the genius of the plant world and the genius of a perfumer like Clive and the genius of remarkable jewellers and house those incredible, ephemeral, divine blends, concoctions, those liquid lights in something that can be here in 1,000 years' time. In an archaeological dig, somebody might dig them up, or they'll be handed down to another generation. And that was what I was told. You will make instruments of light that will be here in 1,000 years. I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay, yep. So I did the whole proposal. The whole vision came out, and it was to support our rose serum, etc. And I just didn't know how this was all going to come about. I just knew that somewhere it sounded familiar and somewhere it was possible. To pay respect to nature in a way that had never been done before or I'd never experienced before, and to pay respect to Clive's genius. Okay. So we had some very generous clients who put some money in so we could start kicking off as shareholders. And somehow Clive had the idea that maybe our perfumes that he was working with were synergistic, simpatico with pearls. Now, if any of you know perfumes, normal synthetic perfumes, they destroy the nacre of pearls. So we tested by putting some pearls into our perfume blends and let them sit. And we discovered that the nacre wasn't destroyed. So there was a level of synergy between what we did and the nature of the pearl. So this, and my birthstone is pearl. So there was something in there that kept calling me, and Clive had bought me black pearls, and these are the crumbs, these are the reminders, these are the triggers, these are the signs. So in 2008, 2009, we were at a particularly upmarket event, and we met this extraordinary jeweller, and he happened to be focused on pearls, a really, really high-end jeweller. Like, I'd never experienced anything like that. So we went to this event, and I was wearing some of his creations, as were other people in the event as well, just getting the feeling of what it felt like to be adorned in some of his creations. And there was this, as he was speaking and I was watching him, I could feel like a golden thread. I could feel a recognition. I could feel a connection. So when he'd finished, I went up to him and he said in his inimitable Italian way, "Oh, darling, you are just beautiful." I'm sure all Italians say that. "You are really interesting. Who are you?" And I said, "My husband's a perfumer." He said, "Yes, I know, we must talk." And that was it. So began, it's still going, but so began a 10-year dance around an idea that started to grow fruit. So we became friends. He left the country, he moved over to Asia, but we stayed in touch. Meanwhile, we'd taken on some more shareholders to expand the company, this whole idea. I remember capital raising at the Crown Casino in Melbourne. Now, I was beautifully dressed. I had 5 minutes to explain this concept. 5 minutes. So I'm up, and it's first thing in the morning, right? Fortunately, there's a thing called coffee. So the main thing that I said within this talk was I said, we roll some of our rare perfumes on with pearls. That is a world first, to my knowledge, back then. And the room went very quiet. And then I realised that it had just gone over people's heads. I came down off the stage. I sat. I was all prepared, ready to stay for another day or two. Zip, nada, no one. I think one gentleman came up and said, "Oh, that was nice. My wife might like some of your scents," something like that. And I remember leaving the room, which cost us a lot of money to participate in this capital raise. on this particular platform, thinking it's like yelling in a snowstorm. Where are they? And what I realised, particularly here in Australia, that what we were doing was so far outside of people's perception or reach that they couldn't see it, comprehend it. It was not in their reality. It was firmly in mine, but not in their reality. So I knew I had to keep going, because once I'd tasted this, seen this, felt it, celebrated it, and it spoke to me more and more, I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down. And by this stage, we'd closed the apothecary to focus on our business into Hong Kong. And then that started to shift as well. So we're in this very, very ripe sort of chrysalis of an idea that isn't moving anywhere, but I have to keep going. So 2012, I came across dowsing using a simple pendulum to get a yes or a no, right? And most people would have heard of these instruments. They've been around forever. The art of dowsing, true dowsing, is a very fine art. It's a very refined art, and there are various degrees and various levels to it. So I started with a tiny little $5 crystal, and I sat it over a chart, and it didn't move for 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, sure. And suddenly it moved. And what happened was something inside me stirred. Something inside me came to life that had been sleeping. So I then set about to deepen this craft, to really understand how it worked. So I studied it for 5 years. I used it every day for 5 years. And the beauty of dowsing when you're doing it properly is that you yourself, because it moves past a yes or a no, it moves into clearing, it moves into recalibrating. And you know, I upgraded my pendulum to a more fancy one. It was a little amethyst one. And I started working on myself, and I started working on the direct family, particularly Clive. And I started honing my skills and listening and honing my skills even more. At the same time, I'm keeping my friendship going with my Italian jeweler, and our business is humming along a little bit. We've got the website going, but this becomes my, I don't use the word passion. This becomes my craft. And at the same time, we have started to have, or I met through another contact, a woman in America who was able to give me these phenomenal readings. Now, I'm highly, highly, highly discerning about who I work with. And this woman and myself, and then later Clive, we became friends. And I would speak to her, and she would give me a reading as to what I was doing and to give me encouragement. And as we move through, I'll explain more about that. So at the same time, I had this level of support. Now, for me, when you clearly see something and it's your vision, it's your expression, there's only plan B. there are many roads. Sorry, there's only plan A. There are many plan Bs to plan A, but there's only plan A. There's no alternative. Because if what you see, and this is how I work with clients in business, is something so exquisite that's going to be an absolute honouring of nature, an absolute honouring of humankind, that is going to shift dimensions, that's actually going to be a gift to humanity, then you got to keep going. You got to keep going. No matter what. Okay? And believe me, it was an up and down road. It was not smooth sailing at all. So back in 2012, while we were doing the capital raise, I contacted probably one of the world's most renowned experts on perfumes. And I had met him back in 1986 when I worked on perfumes in advertising. So I thought there's only one person in the world that I can contact, because we had to put a value on Clive's expertise and his nose. So I can tell you the date. It was January the 6th, 2012. And it was 6 o'clock at night. And I had emailed this person, not expecting to get a response. But I emailed lots of people, never one to hold back. And the phone rang. And it was this man calling from Paris. And he said, "You're my first cab off the rank for 2012. How can I help you?" So I explained what we were doing with natural perfumes. I did mention the words resonance and frequency, which is perhaps taking things too far. But he said to me, if your husband can make natural perfumes that have signature, tenacity, and appeal, he's priceless. Now, if that wasn't a sign to keep going, I don't know what was. So that was that layer. That's what I'm working with. So let's jump forward. So 2016, I've turned 60 and I'm still going. Okay. 2017, the beginning of that, my mother down in Melbourne passes away after a long illness. So there was an inheritance. And it was to arrive in June. Now, any probably, normal 60-year-old might go, oh, I just better put that towards an investment property. Or buy myself an apartment, whatever, okay? Because I'm not getting any younger, am I? Anyway, I went, oh, how cool. We can take this further now. Fortuitously, I was invited by a friend to do some modelling for her beautiful linen range. And she rang me up out of the blue and she said, Dee, just say yes. I want to fly you to Hanoi for a photo shoot. Keep in mind I'm 61. And of course I just said yes. So that was in March in 2017. And on the way I thought I'll drop in to where my beautiful Italian friend lives and I'll spend some time with him. So he was over the moon and so accommodating and so welcoming and so excited. And I got to see his world. his office and the creating that he was now doing with his own company. It was extraordinary. And he used to call me his angel because we used to have, this is the voice of reason in your pocket, I would have very succinct telephone calls with him. That somehow we knew each other. We knew each other from a long time ago. And back in 2010, I had written the book, The Gorgeous Revolution. And it wasn't until 2017 that I actually published it. And on the cover of the book, I won't grab it here, but on the cover of the book is the geometry of Venus, the dance that Venus and Earth do as they move around the sun. So just keep that little fact over there. Anyway, Alessio said to me, this is my friend, he said, I have a dear friend staying with me. He's not well. Is there anything you can do to fix him? He said, darling, I have to go to work, you help Paolo, all right? So there am I sitting, I think after my third espresso. You have a lot of espresso around Italians. Sitting there in my pajamas still. It's very hot in Asia. And so Paolo sits down, and he had been a remarkable jeweler, was a remarkable jeweler, designer. But he'd had brain tumor, something, yeah. And so it had affected his speech. So therefore he couldn't work anymore in the industry. So I said to him, Paolo, show me your work. So he got out a beautiful lookbook, all his designs in it. And I'm sitting there, it's like, oh, wow. And suddenly I said to him, Paolo, have you ever designed a pendulum? Because my mother had passed and I wanted to gift myself something really special from her passing, to acknowledge her and something I could take and move on as an heirloom. And he said, oh, funny that. He said, I was just thinking about that 3 days ago. I went, okay. So then I said to him, so Paolo, what if there was somebody who said to you, I want you to create to your heart's content. I want you to create something, pull it through with your genius that's so beautiful, that's a one of a kind, that's almost this ephemeral idea. And if you could work with a client like that who didn't put a price tag on your genius, who didn't chop you down or limit you, what would that be like? And he said, there's nobody like that. I said, yes, there is. You're looking at her. So that's how our relationship started. So I said, Paolo, I'd like you to design me a pendulum, and it must be called Venus. He went, okay. So I returned home to Australia, and a little bit later, not only within the week, he'd sent me a design. Now, he didn't know about the book. He didn't know about the cover of the book. But if I overlaid the design of this pendulum on top of the cover of the book, they synced beautifully. It was like, because I know how to brief creatives, worked in advertising, but this wasn't about briefing a creative. It was allowing that genius to come through and speak to him and speak to me, unlimited. So the very first prototype, the very first Venus pendulum was born. And Venus arrived and I began working with her. Chalcedony, Paraíba, pink sapphires, diamonds, gold, pearl. Suddenly the pearl became really important. So I asked him, what is, he said, yes, they must have pearls. And so very quickly there was this succession of some smaller ones of that came and arrived. Pan with carnelian and pearls and mandarin garnets. Raphael, which was chrysoprase and green savorites and diamonds and the pearls. And Pan, Pegasus with the black tourmaline. It's my little pocket rocket, that one. And then Sophia, which was purple sapphires and rubies and diamonds and chalcedony and the pearl. So these arrived in quick succession. And then arrived Sirius. Sirius with its 10 eagle heads. And Paolo had sat at our table in Australia and actually started to design it. I watched how he drew and how the image came through, and I followed it right through. So he would design, and then Alessio's team that he introduced us to would create, would manufacture. This is really high-end team. All hidden in places you'd never expect. So meanwhile, my dowsing expertise was going ahead in leaps and bounds because now I had an instrument that was really, really powerful. And I was continuing the readings that I was having with this woman, and in would come Lady Venus and explain who I was and what this pendulum was for. In would come Pan and tell me what this pendulum was for. In would come Raphael. In would come Sophia. Now I'm a rational, intelligent woman with a university degree. But this was my board. I was listening very astutely and asking very, very astute questions. And I was getting very, very accurate answers, all of which are recorded. And at this stage, Clive started to have readings, so we would corroborate. So I did some pro bono or free work with different clients to expand my repertoire and to get the feedback. And then there was an opportunity again with my dear friend that I was doing the modelling for to travel to Portugal. Again, I just said yes. So that took Clive and I to Spain and to Portugal. And at the same time, Paolo was working on the most beautiful pendulum called Divine Love. And he was working on another one, Alcyon, at the same time. I mean, amazing. He'd do two at a time. And I remember we had to go to a place called Fatima in Portugal. We were asked to go to a place called Fatima in Portugal, which over 100 years ago, there was a sighting of the Divine Mother. And I knew that I had to go through those olive fields, olive groves, and sit in a certain place, as did Clive. We knew that we had to go to Fatima and walk down that huge quadrangle of that enormous, I don't know if anybody's ever been that enormous religious complex. We had to walk down there. There was something we had to do to be a catalyst or in some way be able to receive the energy of this amazing instrument, this divine love pendulum. So it wasn't until I'd done that, or we'd done that, that I could receive the energy and be able to utilize it and work with it. At the same time, Alcyon arrived. So Alcyon, with its 9 big cabochon emeralds and its sapphires and its particular kingfisher-like quality. It's like the Ferrari of pendulums. Amazing. It belongs to a woman in New Zealand now. And also Arcturus arrived with all her purple, her rubelites and her purple sapphires and her big diamonds and her generosity. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pendulum instrument. And then Orion arrived. So Orion, with its 500 savrites and its geometry in the shape of an amphora, a water carrier, just adorned with so many pearls. So I was in a very rarefied state of listening, training people to use these instruments, because owners would start to come forward and say, that one's for me. Andromeda arrived. Phenomenal pendulum, that one. 666 geometry, which is not what you think. It works with the womb of creation, so it's black jet and rubelites and pearls and mother of pearl. So all the time, my capacity had to upgrade to work with these instruments. And then Helios arrived. Helios, with a sun disk inside. You unscrew it all and there's the perfume vial inside, all engraved with roses, and a sun disk. It's all beryl and sapphires, yellow sapphires and diamonds and pearls. A mighty, mighty instrument. Helios, the sun, okay, the godfather of the universe. So meanwhile, I'm having my readings and Helios comes through and said, yes, that's me, and explains what Helios is for. So I write it all down and I'm working with it, and I'm working with larger charts, and I'm working with individuals, and I'm expanding my capacity, following my own internal voice. There are many naysayers out there, some who know me directly. I had to swim the other way. I had to follow that internal voice to the letter and keep going, keep expanding my knowledge, activating my memory, reminding myself of who I am and what I came to do. And I kept going. And then, of course, COVID happened, didn't it? So everything got frozen. And where the instruments were being created and where our jeweler was, it all got shut down. And nobody could leave their apartments. So, not being one to be held back, I went, okay, what's this new platform called Zoom? I'm going to learn how to use it. And so I did. So for the next, intensely, 4 or 5 years, I work with clients. Well, still work with clients on Zoom, but I could work with clients on Zoom anywhere in the world, because working with these instruments, the work is so expansive. You're going to feel it anywhere in this universe. So I honed my skills. I worked with individuals in what we called like a 6-month catapult program. And the forerunners of the work with me, it was all about getting their frequency, their resonance up over 500, to open up this gateway here, to clear their resonant field, their epigenetic line, their ancestral line, so that they could be present and they could embody their light, ready for this time. Now it's an accelerating process, but it was through the use of the transmissions, they could stabilize into those higher frequencies. And I was forever being trained, forever being prepared, forever being introduced to new concepts, not through a voice in my head, but it rose up through my body. It would wake me at 5 o'clock in the morning and quietly speak to me and give me the words, give me the aromas, give me the feel, the touch, the vision. And it didn't matter how left of center it looked, I knew I had to follow that. So then, after COVID, of course, COVID was this massive shift. It precipitated this incredible wake up for so many people on the earth. I was reasonably awake before COVID, and much more so since. So what we're working with is a process called embodiment. And people might go, oh, well, there's this word called ascension, right? Okay. There is so much bandied around everywhere. I'm going to keep it really, really simple. In this amazing time, some of us will be waking up and remembering and questioning and going, why am I here and what am I to do? And we start remembering. You know, having worked in the field that I worked straight out of university when I had top secret clearance, I'm aware of what a sleeping agent might look like, okay? So people walking around oblivious to lots of things until, boom, that moment that grace descends and something gets triggered. And once that's triggered and you've seen through that veil, there's no going back. So there was no going back for me. And I knew that my role as caretaker of these incredible instruments was to bring in more, to open up the possibility of working with other jewelers as well as an incredible expression of what it is that they do. Because you think about it, you think about the synergy of these amazing high frequency perfumes and blends, working with lotuses and just the energy that's in those, and then the gemstones and the mother of pearl and the pearls, and this synergistic expression that happens when you pull through various genius according to a divine plan. Something remarkable happens. And we can shift this incredible body of light that we are, this electrical body, into something higher, a higher expression of that can't be fed off, that is sovereign, that is well, without all the data watches and all that sort of stuff, that is here to be literally a vessel for the divine, to be the hands, the mouth, the eyes, the expression of God. We are all the second coming. So this is the shift to bring us to a higher expression of ourselves. And these instruments do it effectively, efficiently, elegantly, with such speed that it's just amazing to watch. So how they work, so there's a sweet, it's like I'm the symphony orchestra. And it's a position of privilege I find myself in, because I'm now connected with the energies that work through those pendulums. And so when I do a transmission, I'm able to go in there and quietly be directed as to where to go with different charts. Let's say we're given, some of the situations I've worked with are so heavy. They could be heavy family dynamics. One was a very, very heavy situation overseas in the UK, where the land was very, very heavy historically, and it had set up a whole lot of family disputes. And so there's a thing called a Gordian knot. And a Gordian knot is like the harder you try and pull it apart, the tighter it gets. So this is when I say we can't solve a problem at the level at which it was created. We have to go higher. And so these instruments allow me to go higher. And every time I work with them, with a client, we work for the whole as well. So their energy goes down into the grids. So we're working with the resonance of the earth as well. It's beautiful work. It's also deeply personal work, and it's really relevant to us as we're raising our children, as we're having a relationship, as we're trying to have a business, as we're trying to buy a house, all sorts of things. How can we clear, recalibrate, bring down a larger plan within our field, those codes? How can we do that and attune ourselves to a different radio station so we can create a different reality? Helios brings in the golden architecture of our new lives. Shambhala, which arrived in 2023. Shambhala took 7 months to create. The internal perfume vial is platinum with beautiful purple sapphires. It is the most extraordinary instrument. It brings in the codes of the new earth. This is a one-off instrument. It's the only one of its kind in the world. So as part of our own embodiment process, and when I talk about embodiment, it's like if I just cleared my energetic field so I can actually hold more light, I therefore hold more integrity, more truth, more capacity, more desire to do good in the world. to be an instrument of the divine. Whether that's in business, whether it's just because I hold that as I walk through a shopping centre, whatever that is. And so as we strengthen our capacity to do this, we become like beacons of light that can transmit light, which trigger off a response in others as well. So without these instruments, I wouldn't have been able to do this work. So they prepare me every time I pick one up, and I work with them every day. Now, there have been many, many, many roadblocks, and there have been many, many charlatans. And if you're listening to this, you know who you are. But the light always, always, according to divine law, outshines the dark. And when your intention becomes so pure that there is only this plan A, you will be supported in ways that you had no concept of understanding or perceiving. You just know you're on the right track. So there will be many people with quite phenomenal visions now that are personal to them. That internal voice. Keep going. Part of my role is to assist you. Part of these instruments' role is to assist people. And I've been told that what we do here on earth emanates out, right out through the cosmos. As above, so below. We are that important to the whole scheme of things. It's no coincidence that we're here at this time. So there you go. My pendulum, Venus, arrived 18 months ago. My upgraded version. She is unique. She carries the geometry of all of them. Her internal vial is engraved with a bee, and a little bee that sits on the top of the vial inside, all with mother of pearl, chalcedony, the diamonds, the sapphires, the pearls. So I work with those Venusian codes. I work with those codes of beauty. And what we do now with our oils, with our rose serum, and with the blends, is they all get coded with these incredible instruments of light. Just as you can affect water with your intention and wine, science now is backing this up. We can shift the frequency and synergize them so that when you put that rose serum on your body, it is coded with the Divine Mother's love. Wow. So again, if you'd have asked me, was I going to be doing this 30, 40 years ago? Nah. Where will I be in 10 years? I don't know. At the moment, I'm writing a new book all about these and how to use them, because I know that some of you listening to this are also pendulum holders. And you will find me, just as the others have, and then it will be your turn, because there are 6 more designs in the pipeline. There are to be 144. And that's my legacy. So I'm going to kick on. I'm 70 soon, and I'm just getting going. This body is well. I am vital, and it keeps me well doing this work. It keeps me alive. I'm not, I said to somebody the other day, I don't need a Sudoku. I don't have to do crosswords. Just stay alert into my 80s and 90s. I'm just going to keep going and doing this remarkable work. And however that expands and wherever that takes me to, and however that sees me working with Clive in a beautiful synergistic way with the oils and the jewels and the pearls and our particular pocket of wisdom, our genius, we all have a genius, our unique genius working together. What a marriage. So far, the journey's been really interesting. And as I said, we're just beginning. So there you are. If you're curious and you want to work with me with these instruments, or even experience some of the transmissions, there are transmissions up there on lightandco.earth that you can purchase and experience. There's the Catapult program, which is now a 5-week online program that I walk alongside with you to take you up over 500 and stabilize you. Now, it's getting easier. Or we can work together one-on-one and create something that's just bespoke for you, for your particular needs and your particular situation. Or perhaps, as I said before, you're a pendulum holder. If so, we have work to do together. That's a whole other level. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being curious. Thank you for receiving my words. I hope my presence, my words, my story have inspired you to keep going. Because we're all just walking each other home. Thank you. Until next time, see you soon.